I remember visiting you in 2010, wasn't it? The Ashes, because I came down to visit you to watch the cricket. And
Yeah, 2010, 2011, the Ashes were, yeah.
And I remember you showing me the barbs of these stingrays, these massive barbs of stingray barbs that you'd collected. And I remember that how you had like a team. You already had like a team of volunteers behind you. I found it really remarkable that you had these people helping you, and you could see it, that they were fascinated with what they were doing. And I thought that that really showed already that you had that kind of leadership quality in science before even finishing your PhD. So I do remember that time down there, because I was at the time just finishing my master's and looking for what I was going to do next, and I wasn't sure. And eventually, I think 3 years later, I started, or 4 years later, I started my PhD.
The great thing about that, Don, was those volunteers I had helping me with my field work, they weren't all scientists. One was an electrician, one was doing a PhD in international business at Curtin University. And what really struck me about that process was that science is often it's considered so exclusive. And yet here I was running around Ningaloo Reef, catching large, dangerous, wild animals to try and understand how we can better conserve them. And everybody on my team, most of them were non-scientists. So there was this element of education and communication that was always apparent in those activities. It's not like a group of well-known or well-equipped and knowledgeable people just going through the motions. Every day when we were out in the field was challenging. And they were just such incredible days, because it wasn't just me that was learning from this field work. It was these other people as well. And funnily enough, I reconnected with two of them over Christmas. I went to Norway to see these guys, and we spent many an evening just last December talking about those days and the amazing experiences we had at Ningaloo Reef. And I think that that sort of sharing of information in a non-technical manner with non-scientists has really been the foundation for my involvement in education now. Because there is almost an exclusivity that shrouds the research process. And here in the Bahamas, we do a lot of work in coastal ecosystems because there's a lot of valuable resources here for the local people. But yet the local Bahamians have never had that experience of education. They've never had the opportunity to learn in a robust scientific framework how to conserve these resources. And so it's almost a responsibility to try and share what we do with not only these local communities, but also with the wider global population. I mean, you can't open a newspaper or look at a news website these days without some story on marine plastic pollution or overfishing or climate change affecting any manner of biological processes in the marine environment. So people are interested, and yet we exist and operate in what might be considered a very closed off community, where we do our science, we publish our science, and we share our science with other scientists. And I think one of the reasons I really was excited to talk to you today was because I felt that this was a great opportunity to perhaps share some of these scientific research programs I've been establishing over the last few years, to share the results in a broader context rather than just within the scientific community.
Sometimes it feels like you're doing science for other scientists, and you forget why you really got into it was to broaden the understanding, like you said, of ecological systems, which would, in what I always hope, by having the greater understanding, would help change behaviors to help us protect those systems. The publication process now, about in one direction we've moved to open access. That's is a good thing because it opens people's, broadens the opportunity for people that aren't in science to read and understand research. But there also seems to be this exclusivity that that is also scaring people away, or not really helping it get to the people that need to change.
A very interesting example, Dom, was I was a co-author on a paper this year that was published in Nature. It was part of the Global Finprint Initiative, looking at the sort of functions of reef-associated sharks on coral reefs on a global scale. And it was published in Nature earlier on this year. And I remember having a conversation with a very well-educated friend of mine here on the island of Eleuthera. And the paper had just been accepted for publication. And he asked me what I was working on. And, I told him that this paper in Nature had just been accepted. And his response was, "Whoa, Nature, that's massive." He said, you must have earned a pretty penny from that. And I thought he was joking. I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, obviously it's, one of the higher end journals. You must have, made a little bit of money from it." And it was quite interesting in that we had a 20-minute conversation about the peer review process and how, if we wish to publish our papers as open access so everybody can read them, then we have to pay a fee to do that. We have to sign over the copyright of our data to do that. Otherwise, these publishers, they hold all the copyright, they hold all the cards for this. So we are unable to, most of the time, share and host our publications on our websites and things like that. And I read yesterday that Nature, the Nature Publishing Group, which I think has over 30 international science journals that it manages, is now introducing a fee of over 9,000 euros. So if I was to publish something in Nature today that was, very exciting and had, far-reaching global consequences, as most, if not all, publications in that journal do, if I wanted the whole global community to read that paper as an open access article, I would have to pay almost 10,000 euros to make that happen, which is just so counterintuitive of why we do what we do in the first place. And I know that 2020 has been an unprecedented challenge for many people economically, but I find these sorts of decisions outrageous, and I'm quite outspoken about it. And it's very important for people to realize that if anybody wants to read our papers, we will email them to you. We will send them to you with no implications, and would be happy to do so, because this is what it's all about. If you're not communicating your science, then what's the point in doing it? I've published 30, 35 papers. If I'd have done all that research and generated all those results and not published it, there would have been very, very little point in doing it. So we've made the step to publish these research articles, but then the publishers themselves are restricting the distribution and access to this information. And it makes me angry, Dom, to be honest, because we do what we do to share the work. And somebody on Twitter pointed out yesterday that, that publication fee of almost $10,000, it could represent an annual salary for somebody in a developing country, or it could represent several months of salary for somebody somewhere else.